Hey, thanks for joining me today for episode 33 of Podcasting Your Brand. I'm your host, producer Jaime, providing learning lessons for you to podcast your brand. And today I'm going to share part one of this initial series of episodes, Thoughts Before Launching. The what? Also known as No Infomercials, Please. This episode is brought to you by my own brand, Flintstone Media. Listen in and let's do this. Hey there. Today I'm going to share with you my number one rule of thumb when it comes to podcasting your brand. Do not make your show one big infomercial. The key to a successful podcast is about the value that you give. I'm going to say something to you that you'll hear me say on this show a lot. When you are recording a podcast, there are three people in the room. You, your guest, and the listener. And the most important person of the three is the one who's not even there, the listener. So I always think of things from a listener's perspective. And you'll hear me reference that a lot on the show. So you'll want to think of things from your listener's perspective. And that listener is there for the value you are bringing to them. You've made a promise of some sort with regards to the kind of content that you're going to be bringing. And let's be real. Unless you're up at like 3 a.m., do you really have any interest in watching an infomercial? Probably not. It's probably not like your prime time viewing option of choice. So who would want to listen to your show if it's just a long infomercial about your brand? Here's a hint. Nobody. Okay. Put another way, why would people keep coming back? I mean, I know there have been some sleepy nights when I've been up for absolutely no good reason, and I find myself watching an infomercial that I've seen before, but that isn't something that's going to be a successful play for a podcast. And if your show is an infomercial, even a very interesting one, it just won't have the staying power because there won't be anything new to really say on episode 2. People need to experience something new. There needs to be a journey. All right, I'll give you an example. And actually, I was the producer on Purina's podcast, the Horse Nutrition Podcast, which is part of the Horse Radio Network. Now, as a quick tangent, I'm famous for them, so just get used to it. Note that it wasn't called the Purina Podcast. Why might that be? You may be wondering. Well, I'll get into naming a podcast on a future episode. But the client's first idea was essentially just an infomercial. Though each episode was really, really well produced from an audio quality standpoint, to be honest, the content it really didn't land. It was delivering the content it said it would, sure, right? It was talking about horse nutrition, but each episode was centered around a Purina product. So while it gave extremely credible and valuable information on their products and how to apply their use in real life, information that could be very useful for a listener, but despite our best efforts to steer them away from where they were starting off, each episode really did end up basically being an infomercial. Now, for the second season, they budged a bit. And they allowed us to bring more storytelling into the show. So each episode followed a particular horse's regimen at their nutrition center. They have horse farms and a nutrition center where they raise these horses using Purina products, and they're beautiful stories, right? And each still delivered the science on the nutrition in their products and the way that all that helps the different horses in different lifestyle situations. And some of it was really, really interesting stuff, like going backstage with the Budweiser Clydesdales. So it was getting closer, but the content still wasn't quite where we knew the show would start to really pick up a solid audience. So we had more meetings before the third season. And for the third season, they finally truly got it. The listener wasn't there to learn the latest in Purina horse feed science, a la season 1. The listener wasn't there to learn about how Purina products help horses, a la season 2. The listeners were there to learn about horse nutrition, period. So they finally made the show less about their products and more about their listeners' horses' nutrition. And it also became much more about the storytelling of the horses. So that we leaned into further. So how do you decide on the what for your show? Well, there are a lot of options, which is one of the things that I love about podcasting and its flexibility. But I'll share 2 main options, which are the options I've used for success over and over and over again with my clients. Number 1, what value does your brand bring to your core consumer? That's what your show should be about. Alternatively, number 2, what is a value that your core consumer is looking for, even if it's not something that you personally, as a brand, deliver on, but it still gets them into your funnel? Then that's what your show should be about. All right, we'll start with the first option. What value does your brand bring to your core consumer? One of my favorite pieces of advice to share with people is to brainstorm their topic of choice. Just grab a pen, grab a pencil, grab a marker, a crayon, I don't care. Grab something and a piece of paper or a notebook, or do it on your phone, whatever. But give yourself like 10 minutes and sit down and think through what it is that you know about your topic and the things that you want to talk about on your show. And just let your pen or crayon or whatever, just let it fly. Let the ideas flow. And this accomplishes a couple of things. First, it gives you the confidence to shut down any inner imposter syndrome and press record. Like, you just need to press record. And if you need more advice on battling imposter syndrome, rewind back to season 1, episode 2, a Business in the Bedroom episode called You Are Your Own Worst Naysayer. Some really, really good stuff there for mindset. I'll put a link in the show notes for you so it's easy to find. But also, secondly, it gives you a good runway of ideas for episodes for your show. And that can really, really help grease the wheels when you're getting started. But also, consider this list a living list that you're continuously adding to, so that it, thirdly, can also keep you going and avoiding pod fade, which I'll get into with you in a future episode. So, for example, when I first met with my former client, Mr. Michaela, shout out to Mr. Michaela, to develop and launch her podcast, Know Your Aura, when I had her and her husband, Scott, brainstorm their topic ideas, they came up with explaining auras in general, explaining each aura color, sharing information about how her readings work, that kind of thing. But also on that list, which came when I pushed them to really step inside their audience, there you go again, everything from a listener's perspective, when I really pushed them to step inside their audience and think about what they want, then they also came up with the inside scoop on television celebrities and a peek into their own personal life. Not the celebrities, but Miss Michaela and Scott. So the idea was to find a way to incorporate all of that and give her listeners what they really want from her. And in this case, we decided to create a very direct play. And I'm sure I'll be sharing more bits and pieces from the development of that show on future episodes, because it was such an awesome experience and really helped me polish off the paving of this whole process that I take on my clients on. So it's really, really good. And the second option, so that was the first option, like more direct play. What do your listeners really want to hear from you? The second option is, what is a value that your core consumer is looking for, even if it's not something that you and your brand personally deliver on, but it's something that still gets them into your funnel? And there's a client that I've worked with, and their show development process revealed a perfect opportunity just like this. It's a show called Straight Up Chicago Investor. But before the show had a name, the clients had an idea to have a podcast that could help increase their brand exposure and build their businesses. Each host, the two hosts, Mark and Tom, they each have their own businesses. But one of their businesses in particular is a crystal clear example of this. So Mark owns GC Realty, which is a property management company in Chicago. So when we were at this part of our discussions, it became apparent that his company's clients are people who obviously are looking for somebody to manage their property, right? That's what the business does. But what else are those people also looking for? What's the tangent? What is adjacent to his give that they also need? Well, they are looking for opportunities to invest in properties in Chicago. So we decided to develop a show that covered investment opportunities in the Chicago area because the listeners looking for that content will then be the same consumers looking for a property manager. And after discovering Mark and Tom on their show, they skip right through the whole know, like, trust thing. They don't bother searching for a property management company. They already have found Mark through this funnel that the podcast was designed to create. So in this case, the what was adjacent to what he actually offers as a business, but it targets the same pool of people and brings them right into his funnel. So what is the promise that you want to step to the microphone and give your listeners on every episode of your show? That's the what. And I hope that this episode gets you closer to figuring that out. And as a quick mention, if you are podcasting your brand, whether a personal brand or a business brand, that you want to check out the app created by my friend Jason Hill. It's the Owl app, and it's spelled with 2 W's and 2 L's, and it's designed to allow you to monetize your expertise. You can go active whenever you want to, take calls from people who are seeking your advice. They are literally searching on the app for you as an expert. In fact, you can catch me on there for a one-on-one, hint, hint, hint. Go check it out. You can catch me on there for a one-on-one on-demand coaching session. I'm on Owl app quite often, so just download it and search me. And as a side note, it's also a great way to land extra clients. So check out Owl. I'll have a link in the show notes. And if you use my referral code PL954123, you get a $10 credit. That's PL954123 for a $10 credit with the Owl app. And as promised, I will take topics touched on in episode 32's Rebrand Sizzle Reel and flesh each of them out on future episodes amidst all the other great info from my experience over the years building brands through the power of podcasting. And up next, on episode 34, I'll continue with part 2 of this initial series of episodes, Thoughts Before Launching, the why, also known as my mirror exercise. So if you're not yet subscribed, what are you waiting for? Be sure you do. In the meantime, I have a whole host of free tips for you on my website. Just check out flintstonemedia.com/free tips. And if you're headed to Podfest Multimedia Expo at the end of May, be sure to track me down. I'll be there. I co-host their podcast, the Podfest podcast. So if you haven't gotten your tickets yet, you can use our code IGNITE for 20% off. I'll put the link in the show notes for you to get your tickets today. And I'll see you there. And give me a big hug, please. Thanks for tuning in for Podcasting Your Brand. In this new chapter of the show, I'm revealing how you can harness the power of podcasting to expand your brand. So come and pick up what I've been putting down since 2014, avoid common mistakes, and propel your podcasting and your branding forward. And if you have questions or are interested in becoming a sponsoring brand of this show, don't be shy. Reach out to me at Jaime, spelled Jaime at flintstonemedia.com. That's Jaime at flintstonemedia.com. All right, it's producer Jaime signing off for now. Remember, the only thing more powerful than your voice is your spirit to use it. So turn that mic on.